From the rifle that gave American infantry a decisive edge over every major enemy force to a simple $2 pistol airdropped by the millions behind enemy lines, the United States assembled one of the most complete and versatile arsenals of World War II. This is the story of every weapon that helped America fight and win the war. Let's start where the infantry itself started, rifles and carbines. The M1 Garand changed infantry combat forever. Chambered in .30-06 and fed by an 8-round en-bloc clip, it was the world's first standard-issue semi-automatic service rifle. While most opposing armies still relied on manually operated bolt-action rifles, American troops could fire every time they pulled the trigger without stopping to cycle the action, and even General George S. Patton took notice, famously calling it the greatest battle implement ever devised. With more than 4 million produced, it's easy to see why. Next came the M1 Carbine, the most widely produced American firearm of the war. More than 6 million were built. Lighter and more compact than the Garand, it was designed for officers, radio operators, engineers, support troops, and others who needed more firepower than a pistol could offer without carrying a full-size battle rifle. For airborne troops, there was the M1A1 paratrooper carbine. Equipped with a folding wire stock, it collapsed to just over 25 inches, making it easy to strap to a paratrooper's chest during a jump. Soldiers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne landed in Normandy with these carbines ready to fire almost the moment they hit the ground. The M1903 Springfield was already a veteran by the time World War II began. This 5-round bolt-action rifle had proven itself during World War I and continued to earn respect in the Second Global Conflict. Slower than the Garand, but exceptionally accurate and dependable, it remained in service wherever precision and reliability mattered. More than 1.3 million served across both world wars. Its sniper variant, the M1903A4 Springfield, became America's primary sniper rifle throughout campaigns from North Africa to Okinawa. By removing the iron sights and mounting a Weaver or M73B1 scope, the rifle delivered outstanding long-range accuracy. It performed so well that the platform itself never needed replacement, only better optics as the war progressed. The M1917 Enfield also returned to service. In fact, more American soldiers had carried this rifle during World War I than the Springfield. During World War II, it found new life in training roles, rear area security, and lend-lease shipments to Allied nations. Then there was the M1941 Johnson rifle, the Garand's strongest competitor, and the one that almost became America's standard service rifle. Its 10-round rotary magazine could be topped off at any time during combat, something the Garand couldn't do with its en-bloc clip. Although it never replaced the Garand, it earned a loyal following with Marine Raiders and Para-Marines fighting across the Pacific. With rifles covered, it's time to look at the weapons built for close-range firepower. Submachine guns. The Thompson M1928A1, better known as the Tommy gun, entered the war with a reputation already made famous on the streets of Chicago. Chambered in .45 ACP, it featured a top-mounted charging handle and cuts compensator, delivering tremendous stopping power in close combat. Heavy and expensive at around $209 per gun, it was still the submachine gun America relied on during the early years of the war, with more than 1.5 million Thompsons eventually produced across all variants. The Thompson M1A1 simplified that design for wartime production. The compensator disappeared, drum magazines were eliminated, and the charging handle was relocated to reduce manufacturing time and cost. It still fired the same .45 ACP cartridge at roughly 600 rounds per minute, proving that practicality mattered more than appearance on the battlefield. The M3 grease gun looked more like a mechanic's tool than a military weapon. Stamped from sheet steel and produced by General Motors' Guide Lamp Division, it was inexpensive, rugged, and surprisingly effective. Firing the same .45 ACP cartridge at a slower, more controllable rate than the Thompson, roughly 650,000 were produced and issued to tank crews, paratroopers, and countless other troops who needed dependable firepower at a fraction of the cost. The Marines also fielded the Reising Model 50 and Model 55 as an emergency substitute, while Thompson production struggled to meet demand. Lightweight and accurate on the range, the Reising quickly revealed serious flaws in combat. The humidity of Guadalcanal encouraged corrosion, mud caused constant malfunctions, and replacement parts often failed to fit between individual guns. About 120,000 were built, but by 1943, they had largely disappeared from frontline Marine service. With rifles and submachine guns covered, let's move to the sidearms troops carried when nothing else was within reach. The M1911A1 became one of the most iconic pistols in American military history. Chambered in .45 ACP, it served as America's standard sidearm for more than 7 decades. Manufactured by companies including Colt, Ithaca, Remington Rand, Union Switch and Signal, and even Singer, nearly 1.9 million were produced during World War II alone. The Smith & Wesson Victory model was a dependable .38 special revolver built as part of the famous V for Victory wartime campaign. More than 250,000 were manufactured for air crews, sailors, military police, and security personnel who required a reliable sidearm without serving directly on the front lines. The Colt M1917 revolver also returned from World War I. As demand for the M1911 outpaced production, these revolvers were refurbished and issued once again. Chambered in .45 ACP and using half-moon clips, roughly 188,000 remained in inventory by 1940 before finding new roles with military police, tank crews, and artillery units. For covert operations, the high-standard HDM filled a completely different mission. This suppressed .22 caliber pistol was designed for the Office of Strategic Services. During one famous demonstration inside the Oval Office, it was fired into a sandbag while President Franklin D. Roosevelt remained in the room and reportedly never realized a shot had been fired. Its purpose was simple: eliminate targets as quietly as possible. Then there was the FP-45 Liberator. This single-shot .45 ACP pistol was never intended to win firefights. It was designed to be manufactured in just seconds from stamped sheet metal, costing only about $2 per unit. More than 1 million were produced in 1942 and distributed behind enemy lines throughout occupied Europe and the Pacific, giving resistance fighters a chance to obtain a better weapon from the enemy. Finally, we arrive at the machine guns. Leading the list was the Browning automatic rifle, better known as the BAR. Officially designated the M1918A2, it became the backbone of the American Infantry Squad. Chambered in .30-06, weighing just over 19 pounds, and fed by a 20-round magazine, it delivered sustained automatic fire at approximately 300 to 650 rounds per minute. Typically issued one per squad, the BAR provided the firepower that allowed American infantry to maneuver and dominate the battlefield. The Browning automatic rifle had first proven itself during World War I, and by the time America entered World War II, it was still serving because no better replacement had come along. Its rugged design, reliability, and firepower kept it at the center of the American infantry squad from the opening battles to the final victory. For sustained fire, the U.S. Army relied on the M1917 Browning. This water-cooled machine gun was built to keep firing long after air-cooled weapons would have overheated. The water jacket surrounding the barrel allowed crews to maintain continuous fire for hours, making it an ideal weapon for defending fixed positions and holding critical ground. Around 128,000 were produced across both world wars. The M1919A4 Browning brought that same dependable firepower in a lighter, air-cooled package. Chambered in .30-06 and firing between 400 and 550 rounds per minute, it became America's standard medium machine gun. Mounted on jeeps, half-tracks, tanks, landing craft, tripod mounts, and countless other platforms, the M1919A4 went wherever American forces fought. To make the weapon more mobile, the Army introduced the M1919A6. By adding a shoulder stock and bipod, engineers attempted to transform the tripod-mounted machine gun into a squad automatic weapon. It remained front-heavy and awkward to carry, but when troops needed sustained automatic fire from full-power .30-06 ammunition, the A6 filled the gap. Then there was the legendary M2HB Browning 50 caliber machine gun. Chambered for the powerful 50 BMG cartridge, it could destroy light armored vehicles, aircraft, and fortified positions at distances where smaller weapons became ineffective. Originally designed by John Browning near the end of World War I, the M2 became one of the most successful military firearms ever built, and remarkably, it continues serving with the U.S. military more than a century later. The M1941 Johnson light machine gun served as the automatic counterpart to the Johnson rifle. Using a unique 20-round rotary magazine, it was lightweight enough for airborne operations and found favor with Marine raiders and paramarines fighting in the Pacific. Although production remained limited, those who carried it appreciated its handling and firepower. Now let's move on to combat shotguns. The Winchester Model 1897 trench gun had already earned a fearsome reputation during World War I. So effective in close combat that Germany formally protested its use as inhumane, the shotgun returned for another war. Its exposed hammer and pump-action design allowed experienced users to slam fire all 6 shells simply by holding the trigger while cycling the action, delivering devastating firepower at close range. Its successor, the Winchester Model 12, refined the concept even further. Featuring an internal hammer and smoother operation, it became a favorite among Marines fighting across the Pacific. Nearly 2 million Model 12s were manufactured during its production run, earning the nickname the Perfect Repeater. The Ithaca Model 37 introduced a unique bottom loading and bottom ejecting system. Because both loading and ejection occurred through the same opening underneath the receiver, dirt, mud, and debris had fewer opportunities to enter the action. Approximately 1 in 400 were acquired under U.S. military contracts during the war, where they proved exceptionally dependable in the harsh conditions of the Pacific. The Stevens 520-30 was immediately recognizable thanks to its distinctive humpback receiver. Although primarily issued for guard duty and base security, it also saw combat whenever additional firepower was needed. When the United States entered the war, the government purchased virtually every Stevens 520 already sitting in the company's inventory. Next came America's anti-tank and infantry support weapons. The M1 Bazooka revolutionized infantry combat. This portable 2.36-inch rocket launcher gave ordinary soldiers the ability to engage enemy tanks without relying on artillery. After witnessing its first successful field demonstration in May 1942, General George C. Marshall immediately ordered 5,000 launchers, recognizing that it would transform battlefield tactics. The improved M9A1 Bazooka was designed with airborne forces in mind. Its 2-piece construction allowed paratroopers to break it down for a jump, then quickly reassemble it after landing. Effective out to roughly 300 yards, nearly 278,000 M9A1 launchers were produced, and they accompanied the 82nd and 101st Airborne into Normandy. The M18 57mm recoilless rifle represented another leap forward. Unlike the bazooka, it wasn't rocket-powered. Instead, it fired conventional artillery ammunition while venting propellant gases out the rear to cancel recoil. This ingenious system allowed troops to shoulder fire a true artillery-caliber weapon with effective accuracy out to roughly 400 meters. When World War II began, America's standard anti-tank gun was the 37mm M3. It performed adequately against lightly armored vehicles, but quickly proved ineffective against increasingly heavy German tanks, earning the unflattering nickname the Pop Gun in the European theater. Against Japan's lighter armored vehicles, however, it remained useful until the war's end. To replace it, the Army adopted the 57mm M1 anti-tank gun, an American-built version of the British 6-pounder. Entering service in 1942, more than 15,600 were produced. It finally gave American forces a weapon capable of defeating most German medium tanks under typical combat conditions. Infantry also gained additional firepower through the M7 rifle grenade launcher. Attached directly to the muzzle of the M1 Garand, it allowed soldiers to launch explosive grenades much farther than they could ever be thrown by hand. Using a blank cartridge to propel the projectile, it became standard equipment for both Army and Marine infantry units. Finally, we arrive at the artillery that supported American forces across every battlefield. The 75mm pack Howitzer M1A1 was designed specifically for airborne and mountain operations. Engineered to break down into 9 separate loads for parachute delivery, a trained crew could reassemble the entire weapon in roughly 7 minutes after landing. With a maximum range of approximately 9,600 yards, nearly 5,000 were built during the war. The 105mm Howitzer M2A1, later redesignated the M101, became the backbone of American divisional artillery. Every U.S. infantry division fielded 3 battalions equipped with 12 guns each, giving every division a total of 36 howitzers. With an effective range of over 12,000 yards and more than 8,500 produced by the end of the war, it became one of the most important artillery pieces in the American arsenal. Airborne forces received their own version in the 105mm Howitzer M3, using the same barrel as the standard M2A1 but shortened by 27 inches and mounted on the carriage of the 75mm pack howitzer. It was light enough to be towed by a quarter-ton Jeep after glider landings while still delivering the destructive power of a full-size 105mm shell. For long-range heavy fire support, the U.S. Army depended on the 155mm Howitzer M1, later redesignated the M114. Crewed by 11 soldiers and capable of firing beyond 9 miles, it served as the heavy striking force of American Corps artillery. More than 10,300 were produced between 1941 and 1953, ensuring its service continued well beyond the end of World War II. Every American artillery regiment also included a heavy battalion equipped with 12 155mm howitzers, working alongside 3 battalions of 105mm guns. Together, they formed the backbone of the U.S. Army's long-range fire support, delivering everything from rapid battlefield suppression to devastating heavy bombardments. Now let's turn to mortars. The M2 60mm mortar was often described as pocket artillery. Weighing just over 40 pounds, it could be carried and set up by a 3-man crew almost anywhere on the battlefield. Despite its compact size, it could reach targets out to roughly 2,000 yards. Around 60,000 were produced, supported by more than 51 million mortar rounds that kept American infantry supplied throughout the war. For greater firepower, battalions relied on the M1 81mm mortar. Much heavier at approximately 136 pounds, it could engage targets over 3,300 yards away, while delivering explosive power comparable to a 75mm artillery shell. Nearly 40,000 were built, and many were dropped in parachute bundles during major airborne operations, including Normandy, Market Garden, and Varsity. The M2 4.2-inch chemical mortar was originally designed to fire chemical munitions, but those rounds were never used in combat. Instead, its rifled barrel gave it far greater accuracy than conventional smoothbore mortars, making it an exceptionally effective high-explosive support weapon. By the end of the war, its range had increased to approximately 4,500 yards. During the final days of fighting around Aschaffenburg in March 1945, one company alone fired more than 1,500 rounds in just 3 days. Next came grenades and battlefield explosives. The Mark II fragmentation grenade, better known as the pineapple grenade, became one of the most recognizable American weapons of the war. Its grooved cast-iron exterior was designed to provide a better grip rather than create fragmentation, despite the popular myth. Equipped with a 4-second fuse, it remained standard issue from World War I through the Korean War, with millions manufactured. The M15 white phosphorus grenade, commonly known as Willie Pete, served a very different purpose. Its phosphorus filler ignited instantly when exposed to air and continued burning until completely consumed. American forces used it to generate smoke screens, mark targets for friendly units, and force enemy soldiers from fortified positions and bunkers. Combat engineers frequently relied on the Bangalore torpedo. Constructed from connectable explosive-filled tubes, it could be pushed beneath barbed wire or other obstacles before detonation, instantly creating a path forward. The weapon became especially famous during the D-Day landings where U.S. Army Rangers used it under heavy fire to blast openings through German beach defenses at Omaha Beach. Another essential engineering tool was the TNT satchel charge. Simple in design but incredibly effective. It consisted of TNT blocks packed inside a canvas bag with an attached fuse. Engineers carried them to destroy bunkers, demolish bridges, breach fortifications, and clear obstacles from Normandy all the way to Okinawa. The M1 anti-tank mine provided another layer of battlefield defense. Activated by pressure and buried beneath roads, trails, or open terrain, the 10.75-pound mine waited silently for enemy vehicles to pass overhead. Hundreds of thousands were laid across every major theater of the war. Now let's look at knives and bayonets. The M3 combat knife was developed as bayonets became less practical in modern combat. Featuring a 6.75-inch double-edged blade, it wasn't designed as a utility tool or rifle attachment. It was built for one purpose alone: close-quarters fighting. The U.S. Marine Corps K-Bar became one of the most legendary military knives ever produced. Its 7-inch clip-point blade was rugged enough for everyday field tasks, yet deadly in combat. Marines carried it from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, making it an enduring symbol of the Pacific War. The M1 Garand bayonet also evolved during the conflict. Early versions retained the original 16-inch blade inherited from World War I, but experience quickly proved that such length was impractical in dense jungles and urban fighting. The blade was shortened to 10 inches in the M1905E1 modification, creating a more maneuverable weapon for the brutal close-range combat that often followed when ammunition ran out. Finally, we come to one of the most feared weapons of the entire war, the flamethrower. The M1A1 flamethrower became synonymous with the Pacific Campaign, where heavily fortified caves and bunker systems demanded specialized weapons. Carried on a soldier's back, it consisted of 2 fuel tanks and a nitrogen propellant cylinder, weighing approximately 68 pounds when fully loaded. It projected a stream of burning fuel out to about 45 feet, allowing American troops to attack enemy positions that conventional weapons often couldn't reach. Its successor, the M22 flamethrower, refined the design with reduced weight, a more dependable ignition system, and an increased effective range of roughly 65 feet. Introduced in 1944, it became the standard U.S. flamethrower for the remainder of the war and saw extensive combat during the battles for Iwo Jima and Okinawa, where it played a critical role in clearing some of the most heavily defended positions American forces encountered.